Gonna give it a few more minutes, see if anyone else hops on. All right. It's a couple minutes after 9. I think we'll get underway. Um, for those of you joining us, I'm Ted Gailey on the call as well as my colleague Zion Brigham. We are technical assistants with California State University, Chico, the Center for Regen Ag and Resilient Systems. We are contracted as TAs through Butte County Farm Bureau to provide implementation assistance and technical assistance to growers. And part of that is providing these informational webinars to enhance understanding of on-farm project awardees through this Healthy Soils block grant through Butte County Farm Bureau. This presentation is going to be available on YouTube for viewing later. So yeah, without further ado, we'll get into it. A quick overview of project verifications. These are needed for reimbursement. So about 45 days, depending on your the block grant manager, the block grant recipient under which you are working with your on-farm projects. Should take about 45 days after completion and signature of verification requirements. CDFA or the block grant recipient will or may conduct verification to ensure that the recipients are in compliance with their implementation practices. This includes just adhering to kind of a broad scope of NRCS standards, natural resource conservation standards. They're the conservation practice standards that these practices are based off of. The CDFA or Butte County Farm Bureau may request any or all documents required to successfully complete this project verification. Now, CDFA has stated that they may select a certain percentage of the awarded projects for an in-field audit and also expense audits. They've left that pretty open to who they're going to select. It may be at random. They may have a criteria on which they select. So really adhering to all the practice specifications and the verification requirements are very important to, mitigate any kind of kickback from CDFA or the block grant recipient, and make sure you get to keep the money you're awarded through this grant. Grant recipients must retain the verification documents for 3 years after the grant agreement expiration date. So from the time that you sign your grant agreement, you have to the 1 year after that, that's project year 1, project year 2, project year 3, grant has closed. And then 3 years following that, you must retain all these verification documents on file, just in case there is any additional audits that are conducted by the block grant recipient or CDFA. And any grant recipients, any on-farm project awardees are required to collect all these documents and have them available during the verification process. And what that's going to look like for each block grant recipient varies. We just suggest you keep them all in an organized area on your computer or in your files. And for Butte County specifically, that's going to be used. We're going to be using a shared drive, SharePoint. It's called a online shared file drive system. So if you want to follow along with this presentation, this is a QR code right here. It'll take you to the Butte County Farm Bureau appendix. This contains all the information that is needed for verification of these projects. So some components needed for verification and reimbursement, there's essentially 4. So we're going to need soil samples. Those are required prior to implementation, and then each year following the practice implementation, preferably at the same time. Annual practices, so practices that are implemented once every year for 3 years during the grant term. Those need soil samples each year, as well as one-time implemented practices such as hedgerows or conservation covers. Those are also have a pre-implementation soil sample, and then at the same time each year, even though they're only implemented one time, you still have to take a soil sample each year, and then that 4th soil sample following closing of the grant that will be on the producer to pay for. Some receipts and reports, so your compost receipts, your seed receipts, your soil test receipts. Now, you're reimbursed at a flat rate basis for your soil tests at $50 per sample. If you would like to include nutrient sampling in that soil test, that's just fine. Another document that is available online, I'll show you how to get to that in a minute, is the on-farm composting log. If for producers applying compost that's produced on farm, this is a required document necessary for verification and reimbursement, as well as if you're using compost produced off-site from a certified distributor, we need to see your carbon and nitrogen analysis. That is one of the crucial components CDFA needs. So the carbon and nitrogen analysis, it doesn't need to be an entire seal of testing assurance. It's preferred if you use a seal of testing assurance certified facility, but it's not required. What we need is that CN ratio submitted to CDFA. We'll get into the specifics of each practice for verification in a moment, but another component is geotag photos. We need to have those taken post soil samples of the implementation for at least the first year. We recognize realities with implementation following that, but the geotag photos for the first year, we need to recommend those are taken following the submission date for your pre-implementation soil samples. And then also just reiterating the compost reduction, the details and analysis. We have a lot of producers using compost. It's the majority of our projects through Butte County Farm Bureau are compost applications. So keeping those details of receipts, all expenses incurred through the distribution and application of that, and the analysis is very important in the reimbursement of compost. Another component, soil sampling and testing. We'll just run through this real quick. It's applicable to all practices, no matter what you're implementing. We need to have soil testing taken. It's just a soil organic matter analysis. Yearly testing required, preferably pre-implementation of practices each year. So that's really what we're going to be suggesting is pre-implementation of the practice each year, just to maintain consistency within soil sample testing results. And of course, each submission of soil organic matter should contain a laboratory report for each field sample. These are the CDFA recommended laboratories, but Butte County Farm Bureau is recommending we go through Fruit Growers Lab in Chico, California. Again, soil sample results are needed. We need to label these bags appropriately with the correct dates, delineating the fields with the APNs within certain fields. If you have multiple APNs within one field, we'd like to include all those on, show that one field contains multiple APNs. We'd like to see GPS points. That's very useful for maintaining consistency and just ease of yearly soil sampling. You can also label the associated practices if you would like to have that show up on your report as well. The soil testing laboratory, and just put that in your lab ID, another part of it, and it will be useful for your records if you deem it necessary. And again, these results are kept on file for the duration of the grant period and for 3 years of the grant closing. You can see it here. We have 1 year of for one soil sample per year for 3 years. Again, we want to look at your project implementation overview. That's going to show you how many soil samples you're actually reimbursed for. Let me get my computer here a second. We won't go through that. This is a soil sampling video. This is available on our YouTube page, CSU Chico at Regen Ag, all one word in title case. This is where this PowerPoint presentation is going to be uploaded to. But we'll get into soil sampling at a later time if you deem it necessary. But we're going to jump into linking expenses to practices. This is how I like to, group describe the activity in a broader sense as far as how we go about looking at how we're going to verify these practices. So we're linking expenses to practices. So you can see here on the right side of the screen, I have an example of the species recommended by NRCS California eVeg Guide. This is included in your replan report. Now this producer here, he selected 3 of these species for the use in his cover crop implementation. However, CDFA is going to want to see that we implemented all these practices. Your block grant recipient is going to want to see that you implemented all the specifics of this practice, And if you do have any changes to your practice, we need to be looking at that ahead of time. So we don't want to wait for verification or reimbursement to come around and say, well, you didn't adhere to the specifics of your plan. So always look through your replan, look through what either your consultant or your technical assistance provider included in your replan, and make sure that lines up with what you as a producer desire to implement in the field. This is just, other than not including the chickpea on this erosion mix here from Lockwood Seed. He did a great job of showing the seed in the mix, showing the varieties included in the mix, and of course there'd be a cover crop seed invoice as well included with the verification documents. Some other examples include an on-farm activity log, just documenting seeding rates with dates. We need to show emergence in the field with geotagged photos. Flowering and termination of cover crop, we recommend that takes place about 50% of flowering within the field. That's also a good thing to take pictures of. We want to essentially be covering everything. So CDFA, if they do decide to choose you for a random audit, has all the information there, and they have no reason to inquire further about your successful implementation of the practice. So extensive documentation the entire time, especially if you have multiple practices. of course, your compost receipts, the compost seeds, carbon and nitrogen analysis, making sure that matches up with your replan report, whether you chose a carbon and nitrogen analysis of your compost of greater than 11 or less than 11, that needs to be reciprocated on your analysis for the compost that you actually applied on your field. The invoice for some hedgerow species planted, geotag photos at the north end, south end, or either end of your field, and as well as the middle, showing those each year. It is recommended you show them, you take pictures each year, just showing the establishment and growth of that hedgerow. Compost piles prior to implementation, again, geotag photos. Also showing pictures of compost being spread on the field. Again, just going back to extensively documenting these practices being implemented. And then, yeah, post-implementation, any service invoices and any direct input costs related to practice implementation, additional labor or fuel as well. So here, this is an example of the Appendix A that CDFA, as well as your block grant recipient that you've been awarded this grant, this on-farm project grant through project. Yeah, through here you see in the implementation requirements on the far right, they're different for each practice. So even between mulching, whether you're using wood chips or natural materials, these are going to have different implementation guidelines and slightly different verification guidelines as well. Verification requirements, I'm sorry. Compost application, whether you're using on-farm produced compost or purchased compost, you see here we have with the on-farm produced compost, the implementation guidelines and the verification requirements are slightly different. And as well as your, if we had a single species cover crop and a multiple species cover crop, we'd need to see that those seeds are all, the species are all, have been purchased, and we're not just putting a single species down when we selected a multiple species implementation scenario, as the payment rates are different. So really reviewing this Appendix A that outlines the implementation of verification requirements is crucial. These can also be found in your replan report, although they're slightly less descriptive. They are in your replan report in the section titled Implementation of Verification Requirements. Go figure. So yeah, here on the left side of the screen, you see some examples, so receipts of the materials, the crop names, activity logs, nutrient applications. That's specific to nutrient management practice. So those of you implementing nutrient management conservation practice standard 590, that's one of the main things they look for there is the on-farm activity log pertaining to fertilizer nutrient applications. Somebody that might be doing a rangeland planting, we see the seed bed preparation. If you're doing a broadcast seed distribution, on-farm composting logs, of course, soil tests, compost receipts reports. Just keep reiterating, the more documentation of these practices, the better. We'll jump into geotag photos now. So some of the examples include cover crop emergence, obviously. You see here the difference in emergence from a younger field. These are both taken on March 11th. So where you take your geotag photos is going to not only affect the germination rate, the emergence rate, which needs to be above 60% for cover crops, but it also affects the time it's going to take to get reimbursed. So these fields were obviously both planted at the same time for cover crops, not the trees. But due to the age of the orchard, the amount of sunlight it got in that top left picture, that producer is going to get reimbursed quicker following the implementation of that cover crop. So really making sure, like if you have a hedged row in your orchard, possibly taking pictures there. You've used the same implementation practice throughout the entire field. We're just concerned with getting this money and checking that box at a quicker time to get the producer the reimbursement needed. A couple examples, other examples you see here is just hedgerow establishment, compost spreading. Something to be aware of for any producers implementing whole orchard recycling. We need to have extensive pictures of that practice. So orchards before the practice begins, the trees as they're being removed, going into the chipper, being incorporated, being disced in, and then the orchard obviously has to be established within 3 years of that. So taking pictures of the orchard being established, irrigation being repaired, any kind of activities related to that. Whole orchard recycling is an extensive dynamic practice, and I encourage you to reach out to your grant manager or us here at Chico State if we need any further guidance on how to best go about verification requirements. Here we have a quick instructions on how to take geotag photos. I'll go to that for a sec. CDFA provides a lot of these documents on their website. So here, we'll see my computer's running a little slow today, but most of the documents that you need to refer to for maintaining proper verification can be found through CDFA. For the purpose of this block grant with Butte County Farm Bureau, we are recommending all producers go to GPS map camera and use that as their platform for taking GPS geotag photos. Sorry. So using the geophoto application or any geotag photo application, you see here on these pictures on the right, upper center and far right, we have the field boundaries outlined there with the APN overlaid. Now we don't want to be taking any pictures outside the field. So up in the center, top center, we have a hedgerow being implemented, and while it might be easier to take a picture across the street to show, the implementation, the emergence or establishment of that hedgerow, we need to have those geotag photos taken inside the boundary of that field. So always referring to your replan report, and as well, all that's required for hedgerows about 3 pictures. Take more documentation is better. For other practices such as compost or cover crop application, we need 3 to 5 representative areas within the field. This is a picture of whole orchard recycling. So you see orchard on the left has not been removed quite yet. This is being removed on the right there. So just a good example of showing an example of the verification requirements needed for a whole orchard recycling practice. Okay, so we'll jump into a quick overview of using the geotag photo application, the geophoto application. There's the link to it. It's available for both Android and Apple. The nice thing about this photo app is that it provides you a GPS point, a location, so what city you're in, what state you're in, as well as the time right on the front image of that photo. So right on the front of that photo, you see right here, it'll have all that information. And that's preferred as opposed to going through the back end of the details of that picture and finding that information that way. So upon opening the app, I'll admit there are quite a bit of ads. I think this developer realized that CDFA was recommending them as the preferred platform or as one of the platforms for taking geotagged photos. So they have quite a bit of ads. Just be careful of those. Take your desired photo, select collection, and after you've taken the desired photo, select the collection, navigate the desired picture, and you can save it as image to a file. And then from there, we'll upload that into SharePoint. But for those of you who do not wish to go through the geotag photo app, we do have another way of taking photos. This is the back end way. I'm going to pause here for a sec. We have a few questions in the chat. Daniel, Zion, thank you. Okay. So for taking geotag photos with an iPhone, we're going to start with opening the settings application. Open privacy and security. Navigate to location services. Select the camera right here. Select while using the app and make sure you turn on precise location, or else your location could be on the other side of town. If you're using this method, we need to be ensuring you're saving these as a file. And when you send them to anybody, we need to send them as an attachment, not actually embedded in the text. Quick video on how to do that. Well, about that. Well, hopefully we'll be able to figure that out. I'm sorry my video is not working for this. I think I'm having some issues with the processing of this computer I'm on. You can also go that route for a Android. If you're on Android, it's a little bit simpler than an iPhone. Won't get into that right now. Always reach out to us if you would like some more information on how to do that. But essentially all this information we've collected, I know it's taken a while, but we're going to be uploading it to SharePoint for Butte County Farm Bureau. And within each year, you're going to have 4 folders. You're going to have a photo for folder. And then within that, you're going to have another subfolder for each practice implemented. And then another folder for your receipts and any kind of testing that has been included. And then another folder for reimbursement paperwork that your block grant recipient, your grant manager, will provide to you. Then we'll have another one for year 2 and year 3, and then project closing year 4. Some reference materials. I want to jump into a couple of these right here. So for Butte County Farm Bureau, most of the information you need is going to be right here. It provides you links to about everything you need. It just takes a little bit of time to read through, but you'll find your incentive grant guidelines. Within there, you'll find all the information pertaining to 1-year implemented practices, annually implemented practices, the amount of time it's going to take to get reimbursed after following practice verification. And then this link right here takes you to that appendix I've been talking about that includes all the verification and implementation requirements. You can always go into your replan document that was generated when you submitted your application and um, refer to that as well. The CDFA has quite a host of resources on their incentive homepage. We'll go to we want to type in CDFA Healthy Soils Program and make sure you navigate to the incentives grant homepage, not the demonstration grants. Click under recipient resources, and these are some of the most popular resources right here. So we have the soil sampling protocol for soil organic matter analysis. I just want to ensure everyone can still see my screen. Yes.
You're good, Ted.
Thank you. The CDFA Healthy Soils Program compost application white paper. If you're unsure about what's required for on-farm composting requirements, that's a great resource. The whole orchard recycling report, that's a good resource as well for any producers implementing whole orchard recycling through this block grant. And instructions on how to take geotag photos, which we've looked at before. A quick overview of the recipient resources. Here we have the grant awards procedure manual. That's for block grant recipients. A lot of these resources on this page right here are for block grant recipients. So CDFA, Glenn County, or I'm sorry, not CDFA, Butte County Farm Bureau, Glenn County, other resource conservation districts, and farm bureaus, or agricultural organizations in general. If you have any questions that weren't answered, or you're having a tough time, or just want to check out these questions and answer logs right here, these were hosted by CDFA when they first started their incentive application or their incentive program application. There's a lot of good information there. A lot of people have the same questions. Grazing management log template, that's a tough one. I'm not sure if we have anyone through Glenn County or Butte County that are doing grazing management, but looking forward into the future, this page does have a lot of good resources on it. So I don't think I have anything else for this group today. We'll open it up to questions here. You can always reach out to us here at the Center for Regen Ag. On the left here, we have Danielle Brown, Colleen Cecil's contact information as well. They are working directly with applicants through Butte County. And we here at the Center for Regen Agriculture are here for technical assistance for anyone that's requiring it. And we'll open it up to questions now, if there are any.